Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're diving deep into something incredibly common, often misunderstood, and let's be honest, a bit of an embarrassing topic for millions worldwide. On achomycosis, better known as nail fungus. Our mission today is a deep dive into this persistent condition, answering the top questions to give you a real shortcut to being well-informed, without all the fluff and confusion.
And truly understanding this prevalent condition, it goes far beyond just what you see on the surface. It really does. It touches on your overall foot health and well-being, and we're here to lay out the full picture for you, from those initial subtle signs to the long-term strategies for keeping it at bay.
So let's jump right in. Nail fungus, or onychomycosis. It isn't just a cosmetic issue, is it? It's a persistent fungal infection that finds its stronghold in your nails, far more commonly in your toes, sort of silently eating away at their health. But what exactly is it, and how do you know if you might have it brewing?
Right. So at its core, nail fungus happens when specific types of fungi, mostly dermatophytes, but you also see yeasts and molds, they manage to invade the nail bed. Think of your nail bed like a fortress. Normally, it's pretty well defended.
Okay.
But these fungi, they're like tiny invaders, and they exploit the smallest breaches. Maybe a microscopic cut from trimming your nails, or just a tiny separation where the nail lifts a bit from the skin.
Ah, so that's their way in.
That's their entry point, exactly. That's the weakness you need to protect. And, knowing whether it's a dermatophyte, which are the common culprits, or maybe a yeast or mold, that actually helps doctors choose the right treatment.
Okay, that makes sense. So if that's how it gets in, what are the telltale signs, the red flags that you should be looking for on your own nails?
Well, the signs are pretty distinctive, actually. You'll often first notice just a small yellow or white spot, usually right under the tip of your nail.
Just a spot.
Yeah, start small. But as the infection progresses, digs deeper, your nail can become discolored. It might thicken up, start to crumble at the edges. It could also get brittle, distorted in shape, or even start to separate from the nail bed underneath.
Oof.
And sometimes, unfortunately, there can be a slightly foul smell that comes with it. What's really crucial here is recognizing that initial discoloration, or that subtle change. It isn't just cosmetic.
Right.
Ignoring it is like letting a small crack in a dam turn into a flood. Addressing those early symptoms can stop the infection spreading or getting much worse, potentially causing pain and, further complications down the line.
It really sounds like catching it early is key. But what often surprises people, I think, is where these fungi actually come from. Let's trace their origins. What are the primary culprits, the environments that trigger these infections?
Yeah, the main breeding grounds are, warm, moist environments. That's what they love. Picture a steamy public pool deck, or a gym shower, locker rooms, even a humid bathroom in your own home. Maybe one without great air circulation. These are basically perfect incubators for fungi.
And it's not just about where you walk, is it? I mean, some of the risk factors are quite surprising. Let's talk about those. Age, for instance, that plays a role.
Oh, absolutely. Age plays a significant role. As we get older, our nails naturally grow slower, and they tend to thicken up a bit.
Right.
Which makes them more susceptible. Plus, you often have reduced blood circulation as you age, and maybe a slightly weakening immune system. All that creates better conditions for fungal growth.
Okay.
And beyond age, certain conditions like diabetes or having athlete's foot already, psoriasis, even hyperhidrosis, that's excessive sweating, they all significantly increase your risk.
Wow, quite a list.
It is. And then there are lifestyle factors. Walking barefoot in damp public places, we mentioned that. Wearing tight shoes or socks that don't breathe well, trapping moisture. Any minor nail injury can also create an entry point, like we said. And just having a compromised immune system in general makes you more vulnerable. What's also quite intriguing is that men are actually more likely to develop nail fungus than women.
Really?
Yeah. And it often tends to run in families, which suggests there might even be a genetic component, predisposition to susceptibility.
That's fascinating. So if your dad or grandpa battled this, you might be inherently more prone yourself. Makes being vigilant even more important for you. Which brings us to a really urgent question many of you probably have. Is this contagious? Am I spreading this? Let's talk about that. How easily does it actually spread?
Yes, it is contagious, but maybe not quite as easily as some people fear. The fungi can be transmitted through direct contact, so touching infected nails, or indirectly through contaminated surfaces.
Like what?
Well, common ways are sharing things like nail clippers, files, even shoes with someone who has the infection, walking barefoot in communal areas, pools, showers, locker rooms again, or using contaminated socks or towels. And yeah, within a household, it can definitely pass between family members if you're sharing footwear or, those nail care tools. But here's the nuance. Not everyone who gets exposed actually develops an infection.
Right.
Your individual risk depends on factors like how strong your immune system is, any existing health conditions you might have, your age, and whether you have any cuts or openings around your nails at the time. It's really a combination of exposure and vulnerability.
So the practical takeaway for your daily routine is pretty clear then. Prevention isn't just a nice idea, it's really your main line of defense.
Exactly. Couldn't put it better. Prevention boils down to, well, rigorous hygiene. Keep your feet clean, dry them thoroughly, especially between the toes. Wear breathable footwear, let air circulate. And critically, never share personal nail care items. Those simple habits, they're your best armor against this.
Okay, so prevention is key. But let's talk about the path to recovery if it's already happened. Once you've identified it, can you treat nail fungus at home, or is it always a case of needing to see a doctor?
That really depends on how bad it is. The severity. Mild cases caught early, they might respond pretty well to consistent home care and over-the-counter treatments. But if the infection is more severe or it's just really persistent, then professional medical help is typically needed to actually get rid of it completely.
And for those early mild cases, what sort of home treatments are people trying? I've heard about products like Care Essentials, for instance.
Yeah, many people look into topical antifungal solutions. Some individuals have reported, positive results with products like Care Essentials. It combines natural antifungal ingredients in a formula that's designed specifically for nail and skin health. But the absolute key, honestly, with any topical treatment, whether it's home-based or not, is unwavering consistency and patience. Lots of patience.
Patience seems to be a recurring theme here.
It really is. People also try other home remedies like tea tree oil or apple cider vinegar soaks. They come up a lot. But it's important to know there isn't strong scientific proof they cure nail fungus, though maybe they help prevent spread or just support general nail health.
Okay.
Which brings up an important point. When is professional help essential? Like, when should you definitely make that appointment? You absolutely should see a healthcare provider if the infection covers more than, say, half the nail, or if it affects multiple nails. Also, if it's causing significant pain or discomfort. And definitely if you have underlying conditions like diabetes or issues with circulation or your immune function.
Right. Those risk groups need to be extra careful.
Exactly. Doctors can confirm the diagnosis, sometimes identify the specific fungus involved, and then prescribe stronger stuff, topical creams, or even oral medications that are just much more effective for those tougher cases.
Now let's tackle what might be the most frustrating part for people, the waiting game. Seriously, how long does it really take to cure nail fungus?
Yeah, this is where expectations often collide with reality. It takes time, often much, much longer than people hope or expect.
How long are we talking?
For toenail fungus, treatment typically takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months, sometimes even longer.
Wow, a year or more.
It can be. Fingernail fungus usually clears faster, maybe 3 to 6 months. And the reason for this long timeline is actually pretty simple. The infected part of the nail has to completely grow out and be replaced by new, healthy nail tissue.
Ah, okay.
To really get why patience is so vital, think about this. Your toenail grows roughly 1 millimeter a month.
1 millimeter, that's tiny.
It is. About the thickness of a credit card.
Yeah.
So for a completely new, healthy toenail to grow from the base all the way to the tip, well, you're looking at over a year in many cases. It's a real test of endurance.
So this isn't a quick fix at all. It's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. And that consistency you mentioned sounds absolutely paramount.
Precisely. And it's crucial to continue the treatment even after the nail looks clear.
Oh, really? Why's that?
Because the nail bed underneath can still harbor fungal elements. Yeah. Stop too soon, and it can come right back. Swift reinfection is common. You might see some initial improvements like less discoloration or better nail texture within a few weeks, especially if you're really consistent with products like, say, Care Essentials. But full clearance, that still takes many months.
Okay, so looking at the treatments available, what's the spectrum? What are the most effective options out there?
Right. So when we look at the most effective treatments, prescription oral antifungals, things like terbinafine, they're often seen as the most potent. Cure rates can be around 70–80%.
That sounds pretty good.
It is. They're often the big guns for severe cases. But because they work systemically, meaning throughout your body, they do require careful monitoring. Usually involves checking your liver function.
Okay, so there are potential side effects to consider.
Yes, definitely. Topical prescription treatments like creams or lacquers, they're generally safer but usually less effective, especially for severe infections. Success rates might be more in the 35–50% range. Over-the-counter options are less potent still, but can be useful for very mild cases or maybe helping with prevention.
And the natural options.
Yeah, then you have natural and alternative treatments. Products like Care Essentials fall into this category. They're appealing because they blend natural antifungal ingredients, things like essential oils, plant extracts, often with a lower risk of side effects compared to the oral meds.
Makes sense.
And then for really stubborn, severe cases, you might look at laser therapy or even surgical nail removal, but those are usually considered last resorts. But honestly, the key to any successful treatment, no matter which one, is consistency, patience, and often combining different approaches might be needed.
You mentioned natural remedies like tea tree oil. Do they actually work? Is the science there compared to pharmaceuticals?
That's a great question. The scientific evidence for most natural remedies is generally more limited compared to the pharmaceutical drugs. They just haven't been studied as rigorously. However, some natural substances do show promising antifungal properties in lab settings or small studies. Tea tree oil is probably the most studied one.
Right, I've heard of that.
Yeah, some small studies suggest it might be effective for mild infections, especially if you use stronger concentrations like 25–50% solutions. Other things like oregano oil, coconut oil, even apple cider vinegar. They have shown some antifungal activity, but the evidence for vinegar, for example, is mostly anecdotal, what people report themselves.
Okay.
The real challenge with nail fungus, especially with topicals, is that the infection often lives under the nail or deep within the nail plate itself. It's protected by that hard keratin layer.
Like trying to get through armor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like trying to treat a deep weed root just by spraying the leaves, getting those active ingredients to penetrate effectively and reach the fungus. That's the tricky part. And that's where professionally formulated products, like Care Essentials, for example, are often designed. They aim to improve that absorption, that penetration.
I see.
So with natural approaches, it's wise to have realistic expectations. They might help for mild cases or be used alongside other treatments, but you should be prepared to seek medical advice if you don't see any improvement after, say, a few months of consistent use.
Okay, so let's say you've gone through that long haul of treatment, whatever it was. Now for the really critical part. How do you stop this thing from coming back? Because prevention, as you stressed, seems absolutely crucial here.
It truly is, because nail fungus has a really strong tendency to recur. It loves to come back. The same conditions that allowed it to start in the first place can easily lead to reinfection if you're not careful.
So what are the key strategies?
Okay, first, foot hygiene. Seems basic, but it's vital. Wash your feet daily with soap and water. Dry them thoroughly, especially between your toes. Change your socks daily. Use moisture-wicking ones if you sweat a lot. Second, footwear choices. Make sure your shoes fit properly, allow air to circulate, alternate pairs so they can dry out completely. Maybe use an antifungal powder inside them. And importantly, replace old shoes that might be harboring fungal spores.
Get rid of the old contaminated ones.
Yeah, sometimes you have to. Third, public areas, pools, gyms, communal showers, always wear flip-flops or shower shoes. Never go barefoot. It's just not worth the risk. And fourth, nail care. Keep nails trimmed short, file them smooth, clean your clippers and files with rubbing alcohol after every use, and absolutely never ever share those tools with anyone else. The real insight here isn't just wash your feet. It's more about recognizing that this condition thrives on the neglect of details. A tiny cut you ignored, sharing clippers just once, wearing damp socks for too long. These seemingly small things are where you win or lose the battle against recurrence. And if you're someone at higher risk, maybe you've had recurring infections, you might even consider periodic preventive antifungal treatment.
Proactive measures.
Exactly. Some people incorporate products like Care Essentials into their regular foot care routine just to keep things at bay. Oh, and finally, if you get athlete's foot, treat it promptly. Don't let it hang around because it can easily spread to your nails.
That makes sense. Now, beyond the visual aspect, what's truly compelling here is that nail fungus isn't just about how your nails look. Does it affect your overall health in more significant ways?
For most generally healthy people, it is primarily a cosmetic issue, maybe some discomfort. That's true. However, it can have several broader impacts that really shouldn't be brushed aside. Psychologically, it can cause quite significant embarrassment. It can really affect self-esteem, lead people to avoid activities like swimming, going to the beach, wearing open-toed shoes.
Yeah, I can see that.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, for those vulnerable groups we mentioned, people with compromised immune systems, diabetes, circulation problems, Nail fungus can pose much more serious risks. In diabetics, for example, those thickened, brittle nails can easily lead to ingrown nails or small cuts in the skin. Because their healing ability is often reduced and their risk of infection is higher, this can lead to really severe complications.
That sounds serious.
It can be. There's also the risk of secondary bacterial infections, like cellulitis, especially if the nail structure is broken down. The fungal infection itself can spread to other nails or to the skin-causing athlete's foot. And in rare cases, particularly in immunocompromised people, it could potentially spread to other parts of the body. And of course, just the physical discomfort. It can become quite painful to walk or wear shoes if the nails get very thick or become ingrown. So yeah, addressing nail fungus is definitely about overall foot health and preventing these potential complications, not just about appearance.
Okay, so to bring this really comprehensive deep dive full circle, let's get crystal clear. When should you absolutely definitely see a healthcare professional? What are the non-negotiables?
Right. You should see a healthcare provider immediately if you have diabetes, regardless of how mild the nail fungus seems. Just get it checked.
Okay, rule number 1 for diabetics.
Absolutely. Also, if you have any condition that affects your immune system, maybe HIV, cancer, or if you're taking immunosuppressive medications, seek medical attention promptly. If the infection itself is severe, like it's covering more than half the nail or it's affecting multiple nails or causing significant pain or discomfort, then professional treatment is usually needed. And watch out for signs of a secondary bacterial infection. Things like red streaks coming from the nail area, fever, increased pain, swelling, or any pus discharge. That needs immediate medical attention.
Right, that's infection spreading.
Exactly. And finally, if you've been consistently trying home treatments for, say, 3 or 4 months and you're just not seeing any improvement, it's time to see a doctor. Because early professional intervention, getting the right diagnosis and treatment plan, it often leads to better outcomes and hopefully shorter treatment times in the long run.
Well, there you have it. From that first subtle spot right through to the long road of recovery and prevention, we've really walked through the life cycle of nail fungus. What we've learned today, I think, is that patience and consistency are just absolutely essential for any treatment approach. Prevention is much easier than cure, and getting help early, especially if you're in a risk group, almost always leads to better outcomes.
That sums it up well. The most important thing is really to take action. Don't just hope the problem will magically disappear on its own. Remember, nail fungus is treatable, and you really shouldn't let embarrassment stop you from seeking the help you need. There are effective solutions out there.
And just remember that individual cases can vary quite significantly. What works for one person might not work for you. Always consider consulting with a healthcare professional, especially if you have those underlying health conditions or if the infection looks severe. So the final thought for you listening: what deeper insight has this deep dive offered you about the importance of paying attention to those small signs your body gives, and maybe understanding how even seemingly minor issues can sometimes have significant ripple effects on your well-being?